The spaceship hung in the darkness beyond Earth's moon. It made no sound and gave off no light. Inside, Commander Zixlar looked at the blue planet on the main screen. Status report, Zixlar said. The commander had led 12 successful planet conquests. Earth would be number 13. Officer Krell moved her 6 fingers across the control panel. All systems running silent, Commander. Earth remains unaware of our presence. Zixlar nodded with approval. The Varaxian Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their method was always the same. Watch, learn, then strike when they understood. Their enemy's weakness. Show me the latest observation data, Zixlar ordered. The screen changed to show images from different parts of Earth. Cities with tall buildings, oceans with ships, forests with small animals. These humans are primitive, said Science Officer Mevra. They have basic technology but no unified planetary defense. They spend most of their time fighting each other over resources. Zixlar studied the images carefully. Never underestimate any species. That's why we observe first. Yes, Commander, Mevra said. We have placed observation pods in all major population centers and wilderness areas. The pods are collecting data on human behavior, technology, and response to threats. Officer Rivka, the youngest crew member, looked up from her station. Commander, I found something interesting. 2 humans are traveling alone in a region they call Yellowstone National Park. This area has minimal technology and many large predator animals. It might show how humans behave in dangerous natural situations. Zixlar considered this. Good thinking, Rivka. Set up a direct feed from that location. The main screen changed to show a forest with mountains in the background. A small clearing held a tent and a campfire. A man and woman moved around the campsite setting up equipment. Zoom in, Zixlar ordered. The image grew closer. The man was tall with brown hair and a short beard. The woman had long black hair pulled back. Both wore simple outdoor clothes in earth tones. Identify these humans, Zixlar said. According to their vehicle registration and park permits, they are Alan and Susan Jones, Rivka answered. He is a wildlife photographer. She studies human cultures. They have been married for 7 years. Zixlar watched as Alan set up a camera on a tripod while Susan wrote in a small book. They appear harmless. Do they carry weapons? Officer Krell checked another screen. The man has a small knife used for camping. The woman carries a device that sends emergency signals. Nothing that poses a threat to us. Continue observation, Zixlar said. I want to see how they interact with their environment. The screen showed Alan and Susan eating a simple meal as night fell. They talked and laughed together before entering their tent. Prepare the invasion simulation based on current data, Zixlar told the crew. I want to see how quickly we could take this planet if needed. Officer Mevra worked at her station. Simulation complete. Based on human military capability, technology level, and response times, we could conquer all major population centers in 72 Earth hours. Excellent, Zixlar said. But I want more field data before we begin. These humans have survived on a planet with many dangers. I want to understand how. As the Varaxian crew members went about their duties, the observation pod near Yellowstone continued recording. The small device, no bigger than a bird, hovered silently in the trees near Alan and Susan's campsite. Morning came, and Susan woke early. She left the tent while Alan still slept. She carried her camera and a small bag. The observation pod followed, her staying hidden among the trees. Back on the ship, Rivka noticed the movement. Commander, the female human is moving away from their camp alone. Zixlar returned to the main screen. Follow her. Let's see what she does. Susan walked through the forest, taking pictures of birds and plants. She moved carefully, stopping often to listen. After an hour, she reached a small stream. She appears to be gathering images of her surroundings, Rivka said. A simple data collection mission. Keep watching, Zixlar said. I want to see how aware she is of potential dangers. Susan knelt by the stream to fill her water bottle. A sound made. Her turn. The observation pod's sensors detected a large animal approaching through the trees. "Commander, a large predator is moving toward the human," Rivka reported, her voice rising with excitement. "It's what they call a grizzly bear, one of the apex predators in this region." The screen showed a massive brown bear with two small cubs. The mother bear had noticed Susan and was watching her closely. "The human is in danger," Mivra said. "Their research shows these bears can kill humans easily." Susan saw the bear and froze. She slowly reached for her emergency signal device. The bear made a low growling sound and took a step forward. Susan backed away, moving slowly. "Fascinating," Zixler said. "She doesn't run. She knows that would trigger the predator's chase instinct." Susan kept backing away, but she tripped on a rock and fell. The bear rose up on its hind legs, looking much larger now. Susan screamed. Back at the camp, Alan woke up at the sound. He jumped out of the tent and looked around wildly. "The male has heard her distress call," Rivka said. "Susan!" Alan shouted. He grabbed his knife and a walking stick, then ran in the direction of the scream. "This is unexpected," Mevra said. "The logical response would be to seek help or use their emergency device. Instead, he runs toward the danger with minimal protection." Zixler leaned forward, watching intently. "Continue recording. This may show us something important about human behavior." Alan ran through the forest, following the sound of Susan's voice. The observation pod split into two parts. One stayed with Susan and the bear. The other followed Alan. "He moves quickly through difficult terrain," Officer Krell noted. "And with purpose, he knows where he's going." Alan reached the stream and saw Susan backed against a tree. The bear stood between them, growling. Without hesitation, Alan moved forward, making himself visible. "Hey!" he shouted, waving his arms. "Hey, bear! Over here!" The bear turned toward him, dropping to all fours. "He's drawing the predator's attention away from his mate," Zixlar said quietly. "Intentionally making himself the target." "That's suicide," Mevra said. "Our data shows these bears can easily kill humans." Alan stood, his ground, holding the walking stick in front of him. He looked directly at the bear, which was now focused entirely on him. "Susan," Alan called, not taking his eyes off the bear. "Move away slowly. Get to high ground and call for help." Susan began to edge away from the tree. The bear noticed and turned back toward her. Alan did something none of the aliens expected. He moved closer to the bear and shouted louder. He hit his stick against a tree, making a sharp noise. "What is he doing?" Rivka asked. "He's making himself more threatening to the predator." The bear roared and turned fully toward Alan. It charged at him. "This will be over quickly," Mevra said. "The human has no chance against this predator." Zixlar said nothing. He watched as the bear charged and Alan stood his ground, knife in, one hand, stick in the other. The screen showed the bear closing in as Susan reached for her emergency signal device. The entire Varaxian crew watched in silence as the human and bear prepared to fight. "Continue observation," Zixler ordered. "Record everything. This may change our entire invasion strategy." The bear charged at Alan with incredible speed. Alan knew he could not outrun the massive animal. Instead, he planted his feet firmly on the ground and raised his walking stick like a spear. "Susan, run now," Alan shouted, never taking his eyes off the bear. Susan scrambled up the slope behind her, pulling out her emergency signal device. Her hands shook as she pressed the button that would alert park rangers. On the Varaxian ship, the crew watched in stunned silence. "The female has activated an emergency beacon," Officer Krell reported. "It's sending coordinates and a distress signal." "Will their rescue forces arrive in time?" Zixlar asked. Mevra checked her data. "Unlikely. Their response times average 20 minutes in this region." The bear was now just feet away from Alan. At the last possible moment, he jumped to the side. The bear's momentum carried it past him, but one massive paw caught Alan's arm. The force sent him spinning to the ground. "Did you see that?" Rivka exclaimed. "He timed his movement perfectly." Zixlar nodded slowly. "A tactical decision. He knew he couldn't match the predator's strength, so he used its own force against it. Alan rolled and got back to his feet quickly. Blood soaked through his torn sleeve, but he showed no sign of retreating. Instead, he backed toward a large tree, keeping his eyes on the bear, which had turned and was preparing to charge again. His arm is damaged, Mevra observed, yet he doesn't flee. This contradicts our understanding of primitive survival instincts. The bear rose on its hind legs, towering over Alan. It stood nearly 9 feet tall now, its powerful front legs extended, with sharp claws visible. It roared loudly, showing long, sharp teeth. Alan didn't back down. He shouted back at the bear, making himself look as big as possible by raising his arms and stick over his head. The human is mimicking the bear's intimidation display, Rivka said with surprise. He's communicating in the predator's own language. The bear dropped to all fours and charged again. This time, Alan wasn't fast enough. The bear slammed into him, sending him flying backward. Alan crashed into a tree trunk and fell to the ground. Surely this is over now, Mevra said. No rational being would continue fighting after such an impact. But Alan struggled to his feet again. He had lost his walking stick, but still held his knife. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. Look at his eyes, Zixlar said quietly. There is no fear there, only determination. The bear approached more slowly now, growling deeply. Alan backed away, moving sideways toward the stream. He picked up a heavy rock with his injured arm, wincing in pain, but never taking his eyes off the bear. Susan had reached higher ground. She shouted into her emergency device. Bear attack at Blue Creek Trail. My husband is fighting it off. Please hurry. The bear followed Alan toward the water. Alan suddenly threw the rock at the bear's face. It hit the bear's nose, causing it to rear back in surprise and pain. A targeted strike at a sensitive area, Zixlar noted. He knows the predator's weaknesses. Alan used this moment to move to higher ground on a rock outcropping. The bear followed, angry now. It climbed after him, surprisingly agile for its size. Why doesn't he enter the water? Rivka asked. Our data shows these bears are slower swimmers than humans. He's protecting his mate's escape route, Zixlar realized. He's leading the predator away from her path. On the rock outcropping, Alan found better footing. He picked up a thick branch and broke off the smaller twigs, creating another weapon. The bear climbed up after him, determined to reach him. In the distance, the sound of engines could be heard. The park rangers were coming, but they were still minutes away. Help is approaching, Officer Krell reported. But the human may not survive that long. The bear reached the top of the rocks and lunged at Alan. Alan swung his branch hard, hitting the bear across the face. The bear roared in pain and anger. It swiped at Alan with its massive paw, catching him in the chest and knocking him down. That blow would have killed most species we've encountered, Mevra said. Alan gasped for breath but rolled away as the bear tried to pin him down. He stabbed with his knife, catching the bear in the shoulder. The bear roared and pulled back. He has damaged the predator, Rivka observed. But at great cost. His vital signs are weakening. Alan and the bear faced each other on the narrow rock ledge. Below them was a steep drop to the stream. Alan's breath came in painful gasps. The knife in his hand was slick with blood, both his and the bear's. The bear charged again. This time, Alan couldn't move fast enough. The bear caught him, and both of them tumbled over the edge of the rocks. They fell together into the stream below with a huge splash. Both life forms show signs of serious injury, Mevra reported, studying her monitors. In the water, Alan and the bear struggled. The current was strong, pulling them both downstream. Alan fought to keep his head above water while the bear thrashed, trying to find footing. The human is using the environment to his advantage, Zixlar said. The water negates the predator's weight advantage. Alan reached the shore first. His movements were slow and painful, but he dragged himself onto the rocky bank. The wounded bear continued downstream, unable to fight both Alan and the rushing water. 3 rangers arrived at the scene in an off-road vehicle. They carried tranquilizer guns and medical equipment. One rushed to Susan while the others hurried toward the stream where Alan lay motionless on the bank. Their rescue team has arrived, Officer Krell said. They have medical capabilities. The rangers reached Alan. They checked his injuries and began emergency treatment. One ranger kept watch for the bear while the others worked to stabilize Alan. His wounds are severe, but their medical scans show he will survive, Rivka said, monitoring the ranger's equipment. Impossible. Mavra shook her head. No species we've encountered could sustain such injuries and survive a fight with an apex predator. Zixler stood up suddenly. Cancel the invasion simulation. I need a complete reassessment of human capabilities. The crew looked at their commander in surprise. But they are primitive, Mavra protested. Their technology is basic compared to ours. Did you not see what I saw? Zixlar asked sharply. That single human faced a predator with multiple advantages, size, strength, natural weapons, and survived. Not by superior technology, but by courage, intelligence, and sheer determination. Zixlar looked at the screen where the rangers were carefully moving Alan onto a stretcher. Susan held his hand, tears streaming down her face. If one human fights like that for his mate, Zixlar said quietly, imagine how they would fight for their world. Alan woke up in a hospital room. Bright lights hurt his eyes. He tried to move but felt sharp pain across his body. His left arm was in a cast, and bandages covered his chest. Don't try to get up, a soft voice said. Susan sat in a chair beside his bed. Her eyes were red from crying, but she smiled when she saw him awake. The bear? Alan asked, his voice rough. Park rangers found it downstream. It's alive but injured. They're tracking it to make sure it stays away from people. Susan took his hand carefully. You saved my life. Alan tried to smile through his pain. I couldn't let anything happen to you. A doctor entered the room. She checked Alan's vital signs and looked at his bandages. You're very lucky, Mr. Jones. 3 broken ribs, a broken arm, and 27 stitches, but no internal bleeding or spinal damage. Most people who fight bears don't walk away at all. Above Earth, the Varaxian ship hummed quietly in its hiding place. Commander Zixlar had called all senior officers to the main control room. The screen showed Alan in the hospital bed. Our observation pods are still tracking both humans, Officer Krell reported. The male's injuries are severe by human standards, but their medical technology is treating him effectively. Show me the data analysis, Zixlar ordered. Officer Mivra displayed charts and images on the screen. We've analyzed the entire confrontation. The bear was 8.7 times stronger than the human. It had natural weapons, claws, and teeth that could tear through the human's soft tissue easily. Yet the human survived and even damaged the predator. Rivka stepped forward eagerly. Commander, I've been researching human history. This isn't an isolated incident. Humans have been fighting predators throughout their evolution. They developed tools and strategies specifically to overcome physically superior opponents. That explains their survival on a planet with so many dangers, Zixlar said thoughtfully. But what about their response to threats as a group? Rivka changed the display to show images from around Earth. Humans have organized systems for responding to emergencies. When the female activated her distress signal, a chain of events began automatically. Their rangers arrived with weapons and medical equipment. Then they transported the injured human to a healing facility. Mavra looked troubled. Commander, I've discovered something concerning. Humans have developed detailed plans for dealing with potential alien invasions. What? Zixlar turned sharply. How could they know about us? They don't, Mavra explained. But they have imagined countless scenarios. They've created stories about aliens attacking Earth and humans fighting back. Some of their military organizations have actual protocols for extraterrestrial contact. Rivka added, and in almost all their stories, humans win against technologically superior invaders. They seem to believe they could defeat us, even though they've never met us. Zixlar paced the control room. So they prepare for threats they haven't even encountered yet. Fascinating. Back in the hospital, Alan dozed while Susan talked quietly with Ranger Keith Miller, who had led the rescue team. We've had 3 bear encounters this month, but nothing like this, Keith said. Your husband's actions were unconventional, but effective. He kept the bear focused on him instead of you. That's Alan, Susan said softly. He never hesitates when someone needs help. Last year, he pulled 2 children from a car after an accident. The car was on fire, but he went back a second time to get the second child. Unknown to them, the Varaxian observation pod hovered near the ceiling, recording everything. On the ship, Zixlar listened to this new information. This human has risked his life for others before. It's not a single incident. It appears to be a pattern of behavior. Not just for this individual, Rivka said. I've found thousands of similar cases. Humans regularly risk their lives for others, even strangers. They run into burning buildings, jump into dangerous waters, and confront armed attackers. Makes no logical sense, Mevra said. Such behavior should have been eliminated by natural selection. Why would any species evolve to risk individual survival for others? Because they don't think as individuals, Zixlar realized. They think as a group. Each human is willing to sacrifice for the survival of their species. The commander turned to the crew. I want more information. Expand our observation. Show me how humans behave in different dangerous situations. The screen split to show multiple images from around Earth. Firefighters entered a burning building. Police officers shielded civilians from an armed criminal. Doctors worked tirelessly to save patients during a disease outbreak. Military personnel ran toward danger instead of away from it. They're all the same, Zixlar said quietly. Different contexts, but the same behavior pattern. When faced with danger, many humans move toward it to protect others. Mevra looked concerned. If we invade, they won't surrender even when outmatched. They'll fight to the last individual. And they're creative, Rivka added. Look at their fiction. They've imagined countless ways to defeat technologically superior enemies. They might try those methods against us. In the hospital, Alan was now sitting up in bed. A nurse brought him food, and Susan helped him eat since his dominant arm was in a cast. The park ranger said you did everything right, Susan told him. Making yourself look big, not running. Using the terrain to your advantage. Alan smiled weakly. I remembered that documentary we watched about bear behavior. I knew running would make it chase me, and I needed to give you time to get away. The nurse, checking his vital signs, shook her head with a smile. Most people would have frozen in fear. What made you stand up to a grizzly bear? Alan looked at Susan. I wasn't thinking about myself. I was only thinking about keeping Susan safe. On the ship, Zixlar turned off the display. The commander stood silently for a long moment. Cancel all invasion preparations, Zixlar finally said. The crew looked shocked. Mevra stepped forward. Commander, despite their unusual behavior, humans are still technologically inferior. Our weapons would kill many of them, yes, Zixlar interrupted. But based on what we've seen, they would never stop fighting. Even if we destroyed their major cities, the survivors would continue to resist. They would adapt, improvise, and sacrifice themselves in greater numbers. Zixlar looked at the images of Earth on the screen. We could take this planet, but holding it would cost more than we're willing to pay. The High Command needs to see this data before we make any further decisions. 3 days passed. Alan grew stronger each day. The doctors were surprised by how quickly he healed. Susan stayed by his side, only leaving to get food or fresh clothes. On the 4th day, a park ranger came to visit. He brought a folder with photos of the bear that had attacked Alan. We're tracking her with a radio collar now, the ranger explained. She's back with her cubs in the north section of the park. Your knife wound wasn't too deep, but it taught her to be more careful around humans. Alan looked at the photos. She was just protecting her cubs. I don't blame her. The ranger seemed surprised. Most people wouldn't be so understanding after nearly being killed. Alan shrugged, then winced as the movement hurt his ribs. Animals don't have evil intentions. They just follow their instincts. We were in her territory, not the other way around. Above Earth, the Varaxian ship received a transmission from the High Command. Commander Zixlar stood straight as the message played. The other officers watched nervously. Commander Zixlar, the voice of High Leader Dravnos, filled the room. We have reviewed your data on the humans. Your decision to delay invasion was correct. The High Command requires more information before proceeding. Zixlar bowed slightly. Thank you, High Leader. We continue to gather data. Send everything you have collected. We are particularly interested in their response to threats and their protective behaviors. The High Command will arrive in 7 Earth days to make the final decision. The transmission ended. Zixlar turned to the crew. You heard the High Leader. We need more data about human behavior under threat. Expand our observation network. Yes, Commander, Officer Krell replied. I'll deploy more observation pods to cover different environments. Rivka stepped forward. Commander, I've been studying human medical knowledge. Their understanding of their own biology is impressive, and they heal remarkably fast. Show me, Zixlar ordered. The screen displayed Alan's medical charts and images. Rivka pointed to several areas. See how the bone is already beginning to heal? And the tissue repair is ahead of schedule. Humans have evolved rapid healing as a survival trait. That would make them difficult to defeat, Mevra noted. Even injured humans could return to fight again. Zixlar nodded. What about their technology? How advanced are their weapons? Officer Krell displayed images of military bases and weapon systems. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but they have nuclear weapons and advanced delivery systems. They could cause significant damage to our invasion forces. And they would use these weapons to defend their planet? Zixlar asked. Based on our observations, yes, Mevra answered. They would risk destroying parts of their own habitat to repel invaders. In the hospital, Alan was trying to stand for the first time since the attack. A physical therapist helped him while Susan watched nervously. Take it slowly, the therapist said. Your body needs time to heal. Alan gritted his teeth against the pain. I need to get back on my feet. We were supposed to document the wolf packs in the northern range next week. Alan, Susan said gently, that trip will have to wait. You need to recover first. I know. Alan sighed. But there's so much work to do. The conservation project needs our photos for their presentation to the park board. The physical therapist helped Alan take a few steps. Most people would be thinking about their own recovery, not work, she commented. Alan smiled through his pain. The wolves won't wait for me to feel better. Their habitat is shrinking every year. If we don't document them now, it might be too late. On the Varaxian ship, Rivka watched this exchange with interest. Commander, the human is concerned about another species. Even while injured, he worries about the survival of animals that aren't related to him. Explain, Zixlar demanded. These wolves are predators similar to the bear that attacked him, Rivka said. Yet he wants to protect them. Humans try to preserve other species, even ones that could harm them. Mevra looked confused. This makes no evolutionary sense. Why would they protect potential threats? Perhaps they see value in all life forms, Zixlar suggested. Or perhaps they understand that diverse ecosystems are more stable. The images on the screen changed to show other humans working to protect animals. Rangers guarding rhinoceros, from poachers, marine biologists helping injured whales, volunteers cleaning oil from seabirds. It's not just this one human, Rivka said excitedly. Many of them devote their lives to protecting other species. Zixlar watched thoughtfully. In 12 planetary conquests, I've never seen this behavior. Most species are focused only on their own survival. A week passed. Alan was released from the hospital. He moved slowly, still in pain, but determined to recover. Susan drove them to a small cabin near the edge of the park, where Alan could continue healing in a quiet place. That night, they sat on the cabin's porch, looking at the stars. Alan had his camera in his lap, taking photos of the night sky. Should you be doing that already? Susan asked, concerned. Your arm is still healing. Alan smiled. The doctor said light activity is good. Besides, I can't stop being who I am just because of a bear. They sat quietly for a while, looking at the stars. Then Alan pointed to a bright light moving across the sky. Look, a satellite. Unknown to them, it was the Varaxian ship, now joined by the larger vessel of the High Command. Inside the main ship, Zixlar stood before High Leader Dravnos and the Council of Conquest. Commander, your reports have been disturbing, the High Leader said. You believe these humans would be exceptionally difficult to conquer? Yes, High Leader, Zixlar responded firmly. Despite their technological limitations, they possess traits that would make conquest extremely costly. Explain, ordered a council member. Zixlar activated the display showing scenes from Earth. Humans exhibit extreme protective behavior, not just for their own kind, but for all life on their planet. They routinely risk their lives for others. They plan for threats they haven't encountered. They adapt quickly to new challenges and they pass their knowledge to future generations. But our weapons, another council member began, would kill many of them, yes, Zixlar interrupted. But those who survived would never stop fighting. They would adapt our own technology against us. They would make alliances with other humans across their planet. And most concerning of all, they would sacrifice themselves in enormous numbers to ensure the survival of their species. The High Leader was silent for a long moment. Finally, Dravnos said, "Show us your most compelling evidence." Zixlar played the full recording of Alan's fight with the bear. The High Command watched in silence as the human faced the massive predator, was injured, yet continued to fight. They saw how he protected his mate at great personal risk. They observed his recovery and his concern for other species. When the recording ended, Zixlar spoke. This is not unique behavior. Our research shows that many humans act this way. They value courage, self-sacrifice, and protection of others above their own safety. High Leader Dravnos leaned forward. One human fighting a bear does not mean they could resist our technology. True, Zixlar agreed, but their history tells us everything we need to know. Humans have fought countless wars among themselves. Even when vastly outmatched in weapons or numbers, they rarely surrender. They adapt, find weaknesses, and keep fighting. Mevra displayed historical images on the screen. Their entire history is full of examples where smaller forces defeated larger ones through determination and clever tactics. They study these events and teach them to their young. And they prepare for threats they haven't even encountered, Rivka added. Look at their entertainment media. The screen showed clips from human movies about alien invasions. In each one, humans found ways to defeat technologically superior invaders. They've been rehearsing for our arrival for decades, Zixlar said. They've imagined every possible way we might attack and how they would respond. A council member scoffed. These are just stories, fantasy. Yes, Zixlar agreed, but they reveal how humans think. They believe they can win against any odds, and that belief makes them dangerous. The High Leader was quiet for a long moment. Then Dravnos asked, "What do you recommend, Commander?" Zixlar straightened. "I recommend we classify Earth as a not engages planet. The cost of conquest would be too high even with our superior technology." Shock rippled through the council. In 12 previous conquests, Zixlar had never made such a recommendation. "What would you have us do instead?" the High Leader asked. "Observe and learn," Zixlar replied. "Humans have qualities we have not seen in other species. Their protective instincts, their creativity, their ability to work together despite their differences. These traits could be valuable to us." "You suggest an alliance?" a council member asked incredulously. "Not yet," Zixlar said. "They are not ready for open contact, but someday perhaps. For now, I suggest we watch and prepare for that day." The High Leader stood. "The council will consider your recommendation. Until then, maintain observation, but take no action against Earth." 2 months later, Alan and Susan were back in Yellowstone National Park. Alan's arm was out of its cast, though he still moved carefully. They set up their cameras near a wolf den, keeping a safe distance. The alpha female had 6 pups this spring, Susan said, checking her notes. The pack has been hunting in this valley for 3 generations. Alan focused his camera as the gray wolves moved through the trees. "Perfect. These shots will help the conservation team show why this corridor needs protection." That evening, they sat by their campfire, reviewing the day's photos. Alan paused on an image of the mother wolf standing protectively near her pups. "Reminds me of that bear," he said quietly, just trying to protect her family. Do you ever regret coming back here? Susan asked. After what happened? Alan shook his head. No, this is where we belong. These animals need someone to tell their stories. Above them, hidden by its cloaking technology, a small Varaxian observation pod recorded their conversation. Inside the main ship, now positioned behind Earth's moon, Zixlar watched with Rivka. The human has fully recovered, Rivka noted, and he has returned to the same dangerous environment. Yes, Zixlar said, and now he's documenting another predator species, not to hunt them, but to protect them. The High Leader entered the control room. The Council has reached its decision, Commander. Zixlar turned and bowed. High Leader, Earth has been classified as deceptively dangerous. Observe but do not engage. Your recommendation was accepted. Dravnos approached the screen showing Alan and Susan. These humans are more complex than we initially thought. Thank you, High Leader, Zixlar said. I believe it is the correct decision. The Council was particularly impressed by their protective behaviors, Dravnos continued. Most species only protect their own kind. These humans protect all life on their planet, even animals that could kill them. They see value in diversity, Rivka suggested. They understand that all species play a role in their world. The High Leader nodded. Perhaps there is wisdom in this approach. Our own worlds have become less diverse through our conquests. What will we do now? Zixlar asked. We will establish a permanent observation post beyond their moon, Dravnos decided. We will study them, learn from them, and perhaps someday when they are ready we will make contact. And if they someday develop technology to detect us? Zixlar asked. The High Leader's expression softened slightly. Then we will need to be very careful about our first meeting. Based on their stories, they may shoot first and ask questions. Later. On Earth, Alan and Susan prepared for sleep in their tent. The night was clear and the stars shone brightly overhead. Look, Susan pointed to a bright light moving across the sky. Another satellite. Alan took one more photo of the night sky. Sometimes I wonder if we're alone out here. There must be other intelligent life somewhere among all those stars. What do you think they'd be like? Susan asked. Friendly or hostile? Alan considered the question. I hope they'd be curious, like us. Wanting to learn and explore, rather, then conquer. And if they're not friendly? Susan asked. Alan put his arm around her. Then we'll face that challenge together, just like we've faced everything else. In the darkness above, the Varaxian observation pod recorded their words. In the control room, Zixlar turned to the High Leader. You see? They're already thinking about us even though they don't know we exist. The High Leader nodded slowly. Yes, and they hope for peace, but are prepared for war. A fascinating combination. That's what makes them dangerous, Zixlar said. And also what makes them worthy of our respect. As Alan and Susan drifted to sleep, the Varaxian ships silently moved away from Earth. They would continue to watch and learn from a safe distance. The invasion was canceled, not because humans had superior technology or weapons, but because they had shown something the aliens hadn't expected. The courage to stand and fight, even against impossible odds, for those they sought to protect. The vastness of space, Earth continued its orbit, its inhabitants unaware of how close they had come to invasion, and unaware that a single human fighting a bear had changed the minds of those who would have conquered them.